Yesterday morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone. It was from my Ring doorbell. I was still half asleep, but then I noticed that it was 3:23 a.m., and a little pulse of adrenaline made me wake up completely and check the notification. I clicked on the person recorded button, and I honestly thought that what I saw was a joke or some kind of prank at first. The first thing I see are two fratty looking dudes with those neon colored trucker hats on. They're running toward my door and they're carrying some sort of animal that's writhing around in their arms. The film quality is grainy, but I see that their eyes look pretty frantic and scared. They were wearing N95 masks, so I couldn't really see the rest of their faces. This is when I realized that they're placing a goat in front of my door. It has a rope around its neck and some wooden box at the end that's holding something. At this point, I'm already speed walking towards my door, and I grab the bat that I keep in my mudroom closet closest to my door. By the time I reach the door though, I can hear the frat bros' lifted truck peeling out from my street. I opened the door as fast as I could, but the truck was already halfway around the corner of the street I live on, and I didn't see a license plate. I look down, and there's a black, brown, and white ghost staring at me. At this point I started laughing, because I honestly was kind of impressed by what I thought, at the time, was a kind of dumb, albeit impressive prank. Now I had some goat to deal with, but that's when I remembered the box from when I was watching that app video. I knelt down while it bad at me and opened what looked like almost a small jewelry box. I pushed open the folding metal clamp and found a small rolled up piece of paper. At this point I'm holding a little length of rope that was fashioned into a collar on the goat. My dog inside is going crazy inside his crate, because he always does that whenever anyone is at the door. I'm joking to myself that maybe he's jealous because it looks like I'm about to take this goat for a walk and not him. The goat looked up at me. It had yellow eyes and those creepy horizontal pupils that goats have. I open up the note and immediately go from annoyed / slightly amused to dread. This is what the note said. We did something wrong. Sorry, but you're the unlucky house. If you want, you can just give it to someone else. But it will kill you if you still have it by sundown tomorrow. Really sorry. We thought it was just a book. What? I had absolutely no idea what to do. I definitely believe in weird stuff, and I'm conspiratorial. That being said, this seemed like a really bad joke. Something made my stomach feel sour though. So I'm standing at my open door still with this note in my hand, and a goat, and I have no idea what to do. What am I supposed to do? Call the police? I brought the goat into the kitchen and tied its rope to my table. All in all, it was actually a pretty chill goat, and I'd pet it a few times. I can tell it liked being next to me, but being next to it almost made me feel colder. After a while, I even got my dog to calm down. I tried looking up some animal control places, but they were all closed, of course. At this point, I'm much calmer, and I'm starting to realize that I'd definitely been pranked. I started to relax, but then really weird things started happening. It was around 3:45 at this point, and I'm searching the internet about what to do with a goat or animals at night. Almost everything tells me to call 911 if the animal is dangerous, but it's obviously not. All of a sudden, I start getting this really bad piercing headache, and my dog starts barking again. I walked into my bedroom to get some Tylenol, and the headache stopped immediately, like right away. I opened the door and it starts again. I went over to my dog because he started whining instead of barking. That's when I noticed that his ears had small trickles of blood falling out of them. This makes me go into a bit of a panic because even though it doesn't make sense, I somehow know it has to be the goat doing it. Right after that, I hear glass shatter all throughout my house. I run to the bathroom, still holding my dog, and I saw that my bathroom mirror shattered. Now here's the part where I start to feel terrible about what I did next. I have a neighbor that's actually pretty nice to me, but he always has a big Trump flag outside their house, and I'm pretty sure he reported me to the local police department one time, because my car was parked in front of his house and I had a friend over one Saturday. So I kind of rationalized this away as me needing to take care of my dog and to clean up the broken glass in my house. But around 4:30 a.m., I brought the goat over to their door, knocked really loudly, and ran off back home. They didn't have a Ring camera or anything. I got my dog into bed and just kind of hid under the covers. Don't judge me. until I fell asleep and I slept in. I got into work late for my shift at my cousin's car repair place. He's hired me a while. I'm in between jobs and I don't want to let him down. Honestly, it was a pretty crazy day with a lot of people coming in, so I almost forgot about it. Got home late, fed my dog, and passed out. When I woke up though, it was 5 a.m., and I heard sirens and there were flashing police and ambulance lights outside my window. I stepped out and there was a stretcher being put on an ambulance right outside my neighbor's house. This next part probably sounds the most insane out of everything so far, but I swear one of the ambulance techs made this weird look at me, like he knew what I was thinking, and I also swear he had horizontal pupils. I found out later that day that my neighbor had a heart attack. I had to post here though, because I overheard a cop who was at a repair shop because he was having car troubles. He was telling my boss about my neighbor's 911 call. Apparently he kept shouting about how someone was staring at him through the walls. He said that there was another voice. The cop said maybe it was my neighbor's voice just in a manic state, but that both my child and their mistakes can be made out at certain points. I feel like I caused this. Did I? Alright, so now is the part where I guess who wrote this. So it's either a random creepypasta found online, Bossramen, Shishcabob, or Elitegiants. Okay, I don't think anyone I know would write a story like this. It just doesn't seem like that. So I'm gonna guess that this is an online creepypasta. It was the first evening in an unknown house, a small, unknown suburban home in the middle of nowhere, where the streetlights cast long shadows on quiet streets. The unknown girl, having just moved in, found herself spiraling through old memories and fear while she waited for the coming dusk. As she walked through the empty house, the sound of her footsteps echoed off the walls, filling her eardrums with a loud, palpable silence. Hunger struck as she wandered into the kitchen, expecting the usual post-moving chaos. However, a plate of pizza sat on the table, a mystery in itself. She hadn't put it there. But what else could it be? Surely it was hers, left behind during the frantic unpacking. Before she could question it further, a loud knock shattered the stillness. She flinched, heart racing, staring at the front door. It was late, too late for visitors. Who could it be? She hesitated but slowly approached the door, opening it with caution. Standing there was a man, her new neighbor, disheveled, panicked, his breath coming in short gasps. "You're in danger," he blurted, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Did you even check the house's history? The previous owner?" His words sent a chill down her spine, but fear quickly turned to irritation. He was rambling, making no sense. She didn't want to hear it. "Geez, what a weirdo," she muttered, slamming the door in his face. Shaking her head, she tried to brush it off. It was late, and she was tired. Sleep was the best solution. As she headed upstairs to bed, she noticed the bathroom light was already on. Strange. She didn't remember turning it on. Shrugging it off, she began her nightly routine. Standing in front of the mirror, she brushed her teeth, her reflection staring back at her, tired and worn from the move. She spat into the sink and looked back up. Everything was the same. Normal. But something felt off. The kind of feeling that clings to you, like a shadow you can't see but you know is there. She ignored it. Back in her room, she glanced out the window, her heart skipping a beat when she saw the neighbor was still standing there. His face was pale, eyes wide, and this time he was shouting something she couldn't hear through the glass. He looked frantic, sweating. She pulled the curtain shut and didn't say a word. She just wanted the night to end. Suddenly, the lights in her room flickered, then cut out entirely. Darkness swallowed the room, except for the faint glow from the barely open bathroom door in the hallway. The light flickered from within. She crawled into bed, too tired to care. Sleep eventually came, though it didn't last long. She woke in a cold sweat, her heart racing again for no apparent reason. It was still dark. The house was silent. The oddness of the night gnawed at her, but nature called. Groggily, she got up and headed to the bathroom again. She sat on the toilet, facing the mirror above the sink. In the dim light, something moved. Her blood ran cold. A man stood in the reflection. Black pants, white shirt, suspenders, and a red bow tie. His expression was unsettling, a frozen, eerie smile that didn't reach his eyes. She gasped and looked down, but when she glanced back up, he was gone. She leapt from the bathroom, screaming, running back to her room. But the lights flickered again, and everything went dark. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the bathroom. The man was in the mirror again. This time, he didn't just stand there. Slowly, he began to crawl out the mirror. His movements were jerky and unnatural, like a puppet with tangled strings. His eyes never left hers, wide and unblinking. He stared at her as if he were studying her, waiting for something. Without warning, he reached out, and the world around her went static. Her vision blurred, her thoughts scrambled. Then, everything went black. When she came to, she wasn't in her house anymore. The walls were gone, replaced by a long hallway lined with doors. Each door had a name above it, crossed out in red, but she didn't recognize any of the names, until she saw her own at the end of the corridor. She approached the door, her hand trembling as she reached for the handle. Slowly, she opened it, revealing her bathroom. The mirror was there, but it was cracked, spiderwebs of broken glass distorting her reflection. Then, from behind the fractured glass, the man appeared once more. This time, he didn't crawl. He smashed the mirror from the inside, shards flying everywhere as he stepped through into her world. And then, nothing. The mirror was gone. The bathroom vanished, leaving her alone in a strange, silent void. She had no idea where she was, or what else might be lurking in the darkness around her. Okay. Mirror, mirror, okay. I have a feeling, I would say it's Shishcabob that wrote this, but I also feel like Bossramen wanted it to make it seem like Shishcabob, who was in the video Mirror Mirror Horror Game, who was playing with me. He wanted it to make it seem like it was him. So I'm gonna say it's actually Bossramen. Let me see. Mirror Mirror. Yup, Mirror Mirror. Wait, it's Elitegiants. Why is it Elitegiants? Everything was normal yesterday. It was a standard day. I woke up, ate breakfast, took in the mail, found a pencil on the ground, rode the bus to work, flipped burgers for 8 hours, clocked out, took the same bus back home, chatted with my neighbors for a few minutes, drew some pictures, ate dinner, relaxed on the couch, and went to bed. There was nothing strange about it. Today proceeded almost the same way. I woke up, ate breakfast, took in the mail, rode the bus to work, flipped burgers for 8 hours, clocked out, and took the same bus back home. But on the bus ride back, something strange happened. I got a text from my mother. It read, "Happy to see you today. Hope your voice feels better soon." But I didn't see my mother today. I worked most of the day and my voice feels fine. Why would she send me that? I thought it was pretty obvious that she meant to send it to someone else, but before I could ask her, I received a text from my father. "Good to see you. I hope your voice comes back soon." My stomach sank a bit. They couldn't have both made the same mistake. My brain went to the worst case scenario. The only explanation I could even think of was that someone was trying to scam them by pretending to be me. I started to freak out. Once I got off the bus, I called them. I asked every question I could think of, but they were adamant that I had visited them today. Apparently I stopped by, but wouldn't speak due to my throat hurting. I helped with chores, ate lunch, and left soon after without taking anything. I asked if they gave me any money or bank information, but they said they had not. My parents are old, but they're not that old. My dad has bad eyes, but he's pretty sharp, and my mom is not the type to get me confused with someone else. There's no possible explanation I could think of that would even remotely explain what had happened. That made me nervous. I didn't know what to do, so I went to ask my neighbor for advice. He's always been good at that. I knocked on his door, and that's when things got worse. He greeted me with a phrase I was not expecting. It was a horrible phrase that hit me like a kick to the stomach. "Welcome back," he said. I asked what he meant by back. He told me I was just here, but I wasn't. I wasn't here. I hadn't been here. I just got back from work. I couldn't be here. But he said I was here. I had to step out. I grabbed some water and left. I felt as though I was stuck under a big rock. My chest was heavy and I could barely breathe. A walk through the city would clear my head. There was still light out, so there were people everywhere. There were people driving, people playing in parks, people shopping, people eating. I looked at those people, wondering if they had already seen me as well. If there was really someone pretending to be me. Someone convincing. As I passed the parks, the restaurants, the stores, I found an art shop. As I walked by, I peered through the window. In the aisles of art supplies, I noticed a pale man. He was drawing in a notepad with a pencil. He had a strange look to him. Perhaps pale wasn't right, more like colorless. He had a dreary skin tone with clothes to match. At the same time, I couldn't help but notice the resemblance to someone I had seen before. I had a vague idea, as though I knew this man. The clothes were drab, but looked similar to the clothes I always wear, and his figure was fairly boxy, just like myself. But this man couldn't be the one tricking everyone. He just doesn't look right. His face felt drawn on and messy. His features were uneven. There was something flat about his posture, and his movements felt stiff. It felt wrong for him to be there, and I didn't like it. I didn't want to be staring at this man, who at every moment felt less like a man and more like a nightmare. He seemed to be drawing a portrait of himself. My knees were shaking. I could feel my heart beat like an earthquake. My chest turned itself into knots. Once I looked at his drawing, I finally understood what he was. He was drawing himself, a portrait of me. I gave up. I went home. I don't understand how or why this could be happening, and I don't think I ever will. I'm tired, but I can't sleep. I may not be able to sleep for a long time. I know I'm not safe. If that thing wants to be me, it only has one obstacle, one person it needs to erase. Bruh. Alright, with that being said, chat. Oh, this was a good one. Okay. A classic doppelganger story. But, I don't feel like it's a Bossramen special. I'm gonna go with Shishcabob on this one. Alright, time for the reveal. DoodleBob. Wait. That sounds like... Wait, okay. I said Shishcabob. Oh, it is Bossramen. I knew from the title that it might not be Shishcabob. Wait, DoodleBob, Shishcabob. Wait. Don't Google yourself. Why? Because you may not like what you find. One day, I was bored and decided to search my own name on Google. I have a quite rare name, so I didn't expect to find many results. Imagine how surprised I was when I came across a website that had my full name in the domain, www.myname.com. When I clicked on the link, it brought me to a message board. I looked at the profile of the website owner and found out that the person was the same age as me and had the same hobbies and interests. There weren't many posts on the message board, but I was intrigued, so I saved it in my favorites. It was about a month later when I went back to the website. This time, it had more content. There were some diary entries, mostly random things like, "The weather was nice today," or "I'm so bored at work," things of that nature. However, as time went on, I began to notice more and more coincidences. The person lived in the same city as I did. It struck me as rather strange that two people with the exact same rare name would be living in the same city at the same time. At one point, I noticed that the contents of the diary were quite similar to my own life. One day, I went to a baseball game, and when I checked the website that evening, I found that the owner of the site had gone to the same ball game. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, tens of thousands of people in the city supported the same baseball team. It began to seem much more than a simple coincidence. Whenever I checked the website, I would notice little small biographical details that seemed a little too close for comfort. For example, the owner mentioned their pet dog, and the dog's name was the same as the dog I had when I was a child. The website owner posted a picture of their car. It was the same model of car I had been driving when I was in college. They talked about eating at a certain restaurant. It was the same restaurant I had gone to all the time when I was working at my previous job. One day, I looked at the message board. People had written messages to the owner saying, "Happy birthday." That day, it was my birthday as well. I decided to write on the message board for the first time, just out of curiosity. I was going to wish the owner a happy birthday and tell them we had the same name. However, when I tried to write something, I realized that there was nowhere to type your message. It wasn't a message board at all, just a static page. That's odd, I thought to myself. In other words, whoever owned the website had gone through a lot of trouble to make it seem like it was an interactive site, as if there were other people posting on it, when in actuality, all the content must have been created by the owner. Why on earth would someone do that, I wondered. I decided to send an email to the owner. It read, "Hi there, believe it or not, we both share the same name. Nice to meet you." It was just a friendly email. The next day, when I tried to look at the website, I discovered that it was gone. It seemed like it had been deleted. Then, I opened my mailbox. There was one reply. When I looked at it, a chill ran down my spine. It just read, "Found you." Alright, so we got another doppelganger fiasco, if you will. Two in a row. Okay, so we got Elitegiants. We already got Bossramen, and we got a random Reddit user. So it's either a random Reddit user or Shishcabob. Okay. Oh, okay, this is difficult. I'm gonna go with a random Reddit user. Alright, let's see. Don't Google yourself, horror story. Okay, let's go. It is not Shishcabob yet. It is Klutzy Chemical 1929. Thank you for the story. I've always been the outsider in my family, being the youngest of my siblings. I'm nothing like them in my personality or my looks, and they always teased me about being adopted. My childhood seemed decently bright, although none are perfect. My parents seemed loving, and so did my siblings. But recently, there's been something off. Maybe it was always there, and I never noticed it before now. It started 2 months ago when my dog got hit by a car. I came home, and my mom was waiting at the door for me. When I came inside, she told me that my dog was killed by a car. She seemed genuinely sad for me, as she gave me a hug and told me she was sorry to tell me. But I noticed when I looked in the reflection from the mirror on the wall as I walked away that her face didn't look sad. She seemed happy, with a happy smile on her face as she looked at me walking towards my room with tears in my eyes, as if she was glad to see me suffering. She had this look in her eyes I've never seen before. It didn't look like my mom, more like a face I'd see in a nightmare. I was surprised when I turned around to see her face looking completely sympathetic and sad for me. I couldn't help but look confused. She asked if I was okay, and I said yes I was, but I felt uneasy about it, though I chalked it up to me being too upset and sad, and I wasn't thinking clearly. The next time it happened was 2 weeks after that. I was in the kitchen with my sister, slicing a tomato to use on my sandwich, when I accidentally sliced my hand with the knife. A few drops of blood fell onto the counter, and I dropped the knife and turned to wash my hands. I went to the bathroom and put a bandage on my cut, but when I returned, I noticed something strange. The spot on the counter where my blood had fallen had no blood on it, but there was a small wet spot where it had been on the counter. My sister was pouring a glass of orange juice and asked if I was okay. I said I was, but I felt extremely anxious for some reason. I noticed she had a little blood on her finger, and I asked her why. She said she grabbed the knife and put it in the sink after I left. I don't know why I thought this, but I felt like she licked off my blood from the countertop. I checked the kitchen rack to see if she just wiped it up, but it was dry. I felt like she was staring at me all day for the rest of the day, and it terrified me. The knife had no blood on it either, and it was in the sink. In the last month, I've heard my dad and mom both laugh several times about made-up scenarios where I would die in a perceivedly humorous way. But when I mentioned that I felt inappropriate, they said that they were only joking, of course, and that they loved me very much. The amount of laughter they indulged in over this seemed disturbing, as they've never been very prone to laughing out loud about anything. And the scenarios were very graphically detailed and gory sounding, which came as a shock to me from parents who had never, to my knowledge, liked gore or morbid things. I keep finding my mom talking in private with my two sisters in their rooms, more than usual. And my sisters always look at me strangely when I walk in on it, with my mom yelling at me to please not disturb them while they're talking privately, with an angry scowl on her face. She always comes to me later and tells me she's sorry for overreacting. And it feels odd when she does. She says it with a mostly blank face, but sometimes she looks amused. I feel unwelcome in my own home, like they don't want me here, even though they've given me no reason to think that outside of their strange behavior. The most shocking thing I've seen yet happened last night, and it's the reason I'm posting this. It was in the middle of the night. I heard something coming from downstairs at 2:32 a.m. and decided to go and look. I wish I hadn't. I saw my mom, my dad, and my two sisters, huddled in a circle and praying. Or at least it looked like prayer. There were a few candles in the room that cast a dim light on the scene, but it didn't seem real. I was peeking around the corner from the stairs and they couldn't see me as their eyes were closed. My mother seemed like she was chanting something in another language quietly to herself, while my sisters and father seemed to be shaking and occasionally whispering something. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They've never been religious, and I don't even know what religion this would be. The chanting from my mother got louder and louder until she was almost in a speaking voice. Then there was a whooshing sound, and all the candles went out suddenly. I was trembling with fear, and I felt suddenly I was being watched. I had closed my eyes and looked away, deciding what to do. But when I opened them, my mother was standing directly in front of me. Her eyes looked completely black, and her voice didn't sound like her voice. It sounded like a man's. She said, "Is everything okay, honey? You should be in bed." I was breathing hard and trembling, but I couldn't speak. Suddenly, she opened her mouth and screamed in my face, "Go to bed." And I must have blacked out. When I woke up, I was in my bed, and the sun was coming up. I could hear my mom and sisters laughing downstairs while they ate breakfast. I'm afraid to ask them about last night, because I feel almost like it's a bad dream. And if it's not, I don't want to know any more about it. I'm scared and I want out, and I think they're gonna kill me. Alright, now it's time to guess who wrote this. Who do we have left? We have a random Redditor, or a Creepypasta writer, or we have Shishcabob. And just basing this off the writing style, I don't think Shishcabob would have written this. Okay, let's see. Something is wrong with my family. And written by JP05178. Thank you for writing this. Which means the next one has to be Shishcabob. Even beneath the thick wool of my mittens, the cold found its way in, numbing my fingers as though the fabric was nothing more than thin air. I headed towards that old lake house by the rocky shore. Calling it a lake house might be too much of an embellishment. It was more of a shack. Wood deformed and drooped as mold took its hold beneath the floorboards. The planks used to patch up parts of the wall seemed as though they could fall over at a moment's notice. In spite of all that, it was exciting to finally get here. I had some time off of work, and this was a way to get away from all the chaos back in my hometown. This place was unusually affordable, even compared to the other listings around the area. As I got closer, I noticed the finer details of the shack. The scratches in the wood, the rust on the door hinge, the splintering of the walls. How quaint it was compared to the surrounding city's extravagance. The perfect spot to get away from it all. The perfect spot to get away from the unrelenting cold. And the perfect spot to get away from whatever it was I heard skulking around me a few paces back. As I made my way inside, I felt the hug of warm air inside. Taking off my mittens, I made my way to the fireplace to heat up my hands. It was already on. Maybe the owner forgot to put it out before they left, I thought as I took a seat next to the crackling fire. The room was small. The only thing to keep me company here was a table, a chair, a fireplace, and a single cracked light bulb hanging from the ceiling. The light bulb was slowly swinging back and forth, still remembering the slamming of the door. The fireplace was all that lit this shack, the embers shining bright as they hit the cracked stones that lined its moat. As the flame bellowed up and down, I could see more of what the inside of this place was like. I laid my sleeping bag on the floor and saw the state of the floorboards, which were slowly being consumed by the ground over the years. The dirt was seeping through and overtaking them. The walls were even worse off than I previously thought. The sleeping bag thumped onto the ground. That's when I heard something. Footsteps. I wasn't expecting anyone. Maybe it was the owner, a neighbor. I opened the door to see who it was, but as it creaked open, the footsteps stopped. I walked around the shack. Nobody was there. I went back to the door to see a streak of moonlight shining through the wall. One of the planks holding it together had fallen down. Its rusted nails littered the floor. The light bulb rocked back and forth. I took a deep breath and shut the door behind me. The wind. It must have been the wind, I told myself as I slid into my sleeping bag. I'm tired from the trek here. Could have just been a deer. Going against the ramblings of my mind, my body eventually gave into exhaustion. I awoke to the sun. No. Moonlight? Confused, I sat up. There was no pushback. Nothing prevented me from doing so. The sleeping bag was missing. I was sitting in dirt. Where am I? Outside? I murmured as I looked around. No table, no fireplace, no walls. A couple of rotten wooden pillars propped up the ceiling and the figure that stood atop it. The chill of the night air enveloped me. My hair stood on ends. Could it see me? What is that? I jolted upwards. The walls fell, and as they did, the figure fell off. I tried to run, but the ground took me in. I reached my hands up as my face went under, closing my eyes. I could still breathe. I could still feel the cold air surrounding me. I opened my eyes in horror as I saw my living room. I was sitting on my couch. The TV was on. The light of my fireplace shone bright. I turned my head to look around the room and saw nothing out of the ordinary, until I noticed the newly rusted hinge on my doorframe. Breathing a sigh of relief, I lowered my hands. It wasn't real. I fell asleep on my couch. I stood up and began walking to the door. But before I could get far, it slammed open, the hinge falling to the ground. From the dark of the doorway, I saw the figure, running towards me. It jumped, making its way into the light, and the last thing I saw was the image of a man in a black shirt and jeans leaping towards me, grunting as it threw his clenched fist into me.